The words I heard across my Thanksgiving table made my blood run cold. My daughter's boyfriend leaned toward his phone and whispered in Russian, "The old fool doesn't suspect a thing. By Christmas, I'll have access to everything." He thought I was just another ignorant American who couldn't tell Russian from Polish. What he didn't know was that I'd spent 20 years as a State Department translator during the Cold War, and I understood every single word he'd just said. What I heard next would force me to choose between my daughter's happiness and her financial future. Before I tell you what happened at that table, let me know in the comments, where are you watching this from? The rain hammered against the windows of my Portland home that November evening as I pulled the turkey from the oven. At 64, I'd been preparing this meal alone for the past 5 years, ever since my wife Margaret passed. But this Thanksgiving felt different. This Thanksgiving, I was meeting Viktor Petrov, the man my daughter Emma claimed she wanted to marry. Emma had been dating Viktor for 8 months, ever since they'd met at a tech industry mixer in Seattle. She'd moved up there 3 years ago for a software engineering position, and our weekly calls had gradually become monthly, then sporadic. When she finally told me about Viktor, I heard something in her voice I hadn't heard since Margaret died. Hope, real hope. "Dad, he's amazing," she'd gushed over the phone 6 weeks earlier. "He's cultured, successful, and he treats me like I'm the most important person in the world. He's originally from Moscow, but moved here 10 years ago. He works in international finance." I'd felt that familiar protective instinct kick in. "I'd like to meet him. Why don't you both come down for Thanksgiving?" Now, as I heard Emma's Prius pull into my driveway, I wiped my hands on my apron and headed to the door. My daughter stepped out first, looking radiant in a burgundy dress, her dark hair styled in soft waves. Behind her emerged Viktor. He was impressive, I'll give him that. Tall, broad-shouldered, with steel-gray eyes, and the kind of confident posture that spoke of European breeding. His suit probably cost more than my monthly pension. He carried a bottle of expensive vodka and an arrangement of white roses. "Mr. Caldwell," he said, extending his hand with a practiced smile. "Such a pleasure to finally meet you. Emma speaks of you constantly." His English was nearly perfect, just a hint of an accent that most Americans would find charming. "Please, call me Richard," I replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, calculated. Come in. Dinner's almost ready." Emma hugged me tightly. "Thanks for having us, Dad. This means everything to me." The meal started wonderfully. Viktor praised every dish, asked thoughtful questions about my career in translation services, which was the cover story I'd always used, and charmed Emma with attentive gestures. He pulled out her chair, refilled her wine before she had to ask, and laughed at all the right moments. "Your father has excellent taste in wine," Viktor said to Emma, studying the label on the Pinot Noir I'd selected. "This is from a very exclusive Oregon vineyard. You must have quite the refined palate, Richard." I smiled modestly. Margaret taught me to appreciate the finer things. She was the real connoisseur in our marriage. "Ah, yes, Emma told me about your late wife. My condolences. It must have been difficult raising Emma alone." Viktor's expression was perfectly sympathetic, but something about his eyes felt empty, like a painting of sadness rather than the real thing. As I served the pumpkin pie, Viktor excused himself to take a business call. "Apologies," he said, rising from the table. "Moscow markets, you understand. Time zones are cruel." He stepped into my study, leaving the door slightly ajar. Emma and I cleaned up the dishes, chatting about her work, her apartment, her life in Seattle. But my attention kept drifting to the low murmur of Viktor's voice from the other room. After a few minutes, Emma went upstairs to use the bathroom, and I found myself standing in the hallway, close enough to hear. Viktor was speaking rapid Russian now, his tone completely different from the polite warmth he'd shown at dinner, and I understood every syllable. "Listen to me carefully," he said coldly. "The old man is exactly as she described, lonely, trusting, desperate to see his daughter happy. He has no idea. The property alone is worth $3 million, and his investment portfolio is even better. I've seen the documents she gave me." My heart stopped. "Documents? What documents?" Viktor continued. "By New Year's, I'll have the power of attorney paperwork ready. She'll sign anything I ask. She's completely blind to it. Her father is even easier. He practically begged me to call him Richard. These Americans and their informality make everything so simple. I gripped the doorframe, fighting to keep my breathing steady. 20 years of intelligence work had trained me to maintain composure in crisis situations, but this was different. This was my daughter. Yes, yes, Victor said impatiently. I'll handle the proposal next month. She's been dropping hints constantly. Once we're engaged, I can access the trust fund her mother left. The father won't question anything once he sees his daughter happy. By spring, we transfer everything and leave. She won't even realize until it's too late. The casual cruelty in his voice, the way he spoke about Emma, like she was nothing more than an access code to a vault, filled me with a rage I hadn't felt since Margaret's diagnosis. I wanted to storm in there, to throw him out of my house, to protect my daughter the way I'd failed to protect her mother from cancer. But decades of strategic thinking held me back. If I confronted him now, he'd simply deny everything. Emma was clearly in love, maybe even showed him private family documents. She'd take his side, think I was being paranoid or prejudiced against him because he was Russian. I'd seen it in the way she looked at him at dinner, the way she defended every little thing he did. I needed proof. Evidence so solid that even Emma's love-blind eyes couldn't deny it. Victor emerged from the study moments later, his charming smile back in place. Sorry about that. Crisis averted. Now, shall we have that vodka I brought? I forced myself to smile back. Of course. Emma's probably wondering where we disappeared to. The rest of the evening crawled by like torture. I laughed at Victor's stories, poured his vodka, acted like the grateful father thrilled his daughter had found such a catch, all while his words echoed in my skull. She won't even realize until it's too late. When they finally left around 10, Emma hugged me at the door. See, Dad? Isn't he wonderful? I know you two are going to be great friends. I held her tighter than usual. He seems very taken with you, sweetheart. He is, she said, pulling back with a radiant smile. Dad, I think he's going to propose soon. Isn't that exciting? My stomach twisted. That would be something. I watched their taillights disappear into the rainy Portland night. Inside, I stood in my empty house, surrounded by the remnants of Thanksgiving dinner, and felt more alone than I had since Margaret's funeral. But I wasn't helpless. Victor had made a critical mistake. He'd underestimated the old fool. Sleep didn't come that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying Victor's phone conversation word for word. My Russian was flawless after 20 years of translating classified documents, intercepting communications, and attending diplomatic functions where one wrong word could spark an international incident. The language had been my life, my secret weapon, my contribution to winning the Cold War. Now I needed to use it again. Not for my country, but for my daughter. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I needed help from someone who'd understand the stakes, someone with resources I no longer had access to. At 8 a.m., I called Marcus Webb. Marcus and I had worked together in the 80s and 90s, back when Soviet intelligence operations were the primary threat to American security. He'd been CIA, I'd been State Department, but our paths crossed frequently enough that we'd developed a mutual respect that survived our retirements. Last I'd heard, Marcus had gone private, doing security consulting for corporations worried about industrial espionage. Richard Caldwell, Marcus's gravelly voice answered after 2 rings. This better be good. I don't hear from you for 3 years, and you call before 9 on Black Friday? I need a favor, Marcus. It's about my daughter. The joking tone vanished. What's wrong? Is she hurt? Not yet. But she's in danger, and I can't prove it without help. I laid out everything. Victor's call, the Russian conversation, the implications about documents and power of attorney, the planned proposal, and theft. Marcus was silent for a long moment. You're sure about the Russian? Not misheard or misinterpreted? Marcus, I translated Gorbachev's private correspondence. I think I can handle overhearing a con man's phone call. Fair point. Okay. Give me everything you know about this Viktor Petrov. Full name, where he works, any details Emma's mentioned. I've got contacts who can run a deep background check. I spent the next hour providing everything I could remember. Victor worked for something called Meridian International Finance. He drove a black Mercedes. He had an apartment in downtown Seattle. Emma had mentioned he'd been married before, but divorced. No children. "Give me 72 hours," Marcus said. "I'll see what I can dig up. In the meantime, Richard, you need to act normal. If this guy's as calculating as you say, he'll notice any change in your behavior." The next 3 days were agony. I called Emma twice, keeping my voice light and cheerful, asking about her weekend plans, telling her how much I'd enjoyed meeting Victor. Each conversation felt like swallowing glass. "He loved you too, Dad," Emma said warmly during our Sunday call. "He said you were exactly the kind of father-in-law he'd always hoped for. Cultured, intelligent, welcoming." Of course he did. I was the key to everything he wanted. On Monday afternoon, Marcus called back. "Richard, you need to sit down for this." I was already sitting in my study, but I gripped the phone tighter. "Tell me, Viktor Petrov, real name Viktor Dmitrievich Petrov. He's in the U.S. on a work visa, but here's where it gets interesting. Meridian International Finance is a legitimate company, but Victor's position there is essentially junior analyst. Nothing like the senior executive role he's apparently claimed. His salary is decent, but not the high-roller lifestyle he's projecting. So he's living beyond his means. Way beyond. My contacts found he's got significant debt. Credit cards maxed out, a loan on that Mercedes that's 3 months behind. And here's the kicker. He's been married not once, but 3 times. Twice in Russia, once here in the States. All 3 marriages ended within 2 years, and in each case, the ex-wives reported financial irregularities. One filed a police report claiming he'd forged her signature on loan documents. My hands were shaking. Were charges filed? No. She dropped it, probably because he left the country. The pattern's clear, Richard. He finds women with money or access to money, marries them, takes what he can, and disappears before they realize what's happened. Your daughter fits his victim profile perfectly. Single, successful, and based on public property records, she inherited a significant trust from her mother. How did you... I'm thorough. Margaret's estate is public record. Emma received a trust fund worth about $800,000. Plus, she's listed as beneficiary on your estate, which is worth considerably more given your real estate holdings and pension. I felt sick. He's done this before, multiple times. And he's gotten away with it multiple times. The question is, how do we stop him this time? I need proof Emma will believe. If I just tell her this, she'll think I'm prejudiced or paranoid. I need him to expose himself. Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking, "You said he spoke Russian on the phone, thinking you didn't understand. What if we create a situation where he does it again? But this time, we record it. Get him to incriminate himself on tape. Emma would never agree to wear a wire or spy on him. I'm not talking about Emma. I'm talking about you. What if you invited them for Christmas? Played the doting future father-in-law? Maybe even brought up finances, your estate planning, something that would make him think he's winning. We wire your house, and I've got friends who can monitor it. If he makes calls or speaks Russian when he thinks you can't hear, we'll have everything documented." It was risky. If Victor suspected anything, he'd vanish, and I'd lose any chance of protecting Emma. But if I did nothing, she'd sign away her future to a man who saw her as nothing more than a target. "Let's do it," I said. "But Marcus, this has to be airtight. I can't lose my daughter over a failed sting operation." "You won't. Trust me." I called Emma that evening. "Sweetheart, I've been thinking. I'd love to host you and Victor for Christmas. Make it a real family holiday. What do you say?" The joy in her voice nearly broke me. "Dad, that would be amazing. Victor was just saying how he misses traditional family celebrations. He'll be so excited." "I bet he will," I thought grimly. The next 3 weeks were a carefully choreographed performance. I called Emma regularly, always asking about Victor, expressing how much I looked forward to seeing them both. I sent Victor a friendly email about investment strategies, mentioning casually that I was reviewing my estate planning with my lawyer. His response was immediate and enthusiastic. "Richard, I'd be happy to discuss financial planning with you over the holidays. I work with high net worth individuals regularly and could offer some insights." The trap was baited. 2 days before Christmas, Marcus's team arrived at my house in an unmarked van. They spent 4 hours installing sophisticated surveillance equipment, microphones in the living room, study, and guest bedroom where Victor and Emma would stay. Cameras were hidden in smoke detectors and picture frames. State of the art, Marcus assured me as he tested the system. We'll be monitoring from a location nearby. If he incriminates himself, we'll have it recorded in crystal clear audio and video. Just act natural, and let him hang himself with his own words. Christmas Eve arrived with fresh snow, unusual for Portland. Emma and Victor drove down in the afternoon, their arms full of wrapped presents. Victor looked relaxed and confident, the picture of a successful young man about to join a wealthy family. "Richard," he exclaimed, embracing me like we were old friends. "Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for including me in your family celebration." We settled into the evening with eggnog and Christmas music. I'd outdone myself with decorations, wanting everything to seem warm and welcoming. Victor played his role perfectly, complimenting everything, helping with dinner preparations, treating Emma like a princess. After dinner, as we sat by the fireplace, I made my move. "Victor, I wanted to thank you for that email about estate planning. I've been thinking about updating my will, especially now that Emma's found someone so capable. Would you mind taking a look at some documents in my study? Get your professional opinion." His eyes lit up briefly before he masked it with professional courtesy. "Of course, Richard. I'd be honored to help." Emma beamed. "See? I told you Dad would appreciate your expertise." In my study, I pulled out a folder I'd prepared, filled with legitimate-looking but essentially meaningless financial statements. Victor studied them carefully, asking intelligent questions, playing the helpful advisor. "This is quite a substantial portfolio," he said, and I caught the hunger behind his professional tone. "With the right management, this could grow considerably. Have you considered setting up a family trust? It would make transferring assets much more efficient." I hadn't thought of that. "Would that be something you could help arrange?" "Absolutely. In fact, after the holidays, I could introduce you to some colleagues who specialize in that exact thing. Very discreet, very efficient. I'll bet they are. Probably the same colleagues who'd helped him drain his previous wives' accounts." We rejoined Emma in the living room, and the evening continued with gift exchanges and more eggnog. Around 10, Emma yawned. "I'm exhausted from the drive. Victor, should we turn in?" "You go ahead, darling," he said, kissing her forehead. "I have a quick call to make to Moscow. Business never sleeps, you know. I'll be up shortly." My heart rate accelerated. This was it. Emma headed upstairs, and Victor excused himself to the study, closing the door. I pretended to clean up in the kitchen, close enough to hear, but not suspiciously so. Within minutes, Victor's voice came through, speaking Russian, low and confident. "Dmitri, listen carefully. It's better than we thought. The old man is completely trusting, practically begging me to manage his finances. I showed him the foundation we set up last month. Yes, the one for the other arrangement. He doesn't suspect anything." I stood frozen, Marcus's equipment capturing every word. "The daughter is even easier than I expected. She gave me copies of her trust documents last week, said she wanted my advice on investment strategies. Can you believe it? By February, I'll have signatures on everything we need. The power of attorney forms are already drafted." My hands clenched into fists. Victor laughed, a cold sound nothing like his warm chuckle from dinner. "Yes, the proposal is planned for New Year's Eve. Very romantic, very public. After that, she won't question anything. Americans are so sentimental about engagement rings and wedding plans. It makes them blind." He paused, listening to whoever Dmitri was. "The old man's estate is worth approximately $4.2 million, plus the daughter's trust fund. We'll structure it through the same channels as the Seattle widow last year. By the time they realize what's happened, we'll be in Cyprus. The divorce will be filed from there, and good luck to them trying to recover anything through international courts." Seattle widow. There had been others, recent others. Victor continued, "I need you to have the paperwork ready by January 15th. The notary we used before, the one who doesn't ask questions. And Dmitri, Make sure the accounts in Nicosia are ready to receive transfers. Large ones. When he finally emerged from the study, his face was flushed with triumph. He found me in the kitchen, finishing the dishes. Richard, thank you again for such a wonderful evening. I can't tell you how much it means to be welcomed into a family like this. Emma is so lucky to have a father who cares so much about her future. I looked at this man, this predator who'd targeted my daughter with surgical precision, and I smiled. Family is everything, Victor. I'd do anything to protect Emma's happiness. As would I, he said smoothly. As would I. He had no idea he'd just handed me everything I needed to destroy him. The next morning, Christmas Day, we opened presents and had a festive brunch. I played the cheerful host, Victor played the devoted boyfriend, and Emma glowed with happiness. Every smile on her face was a knife to my heart because I knew what was coming. After they left that evening, promising to return for New Year's, I sat down with Marcus to review the recordings. It's perfect, Marcus said, queuing up Victor's phone call. We've got him discussing fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, and if that comment about the Seattle widow refers to what I think it does, there might be an active criminal investigation we can tie him to. What's our next move? We need to bring in the FBI. Financial fraud of this scale, especially involving foreign nationals and international transfers, is their jurisdiction. I've got a contact, Special Agent Sarah Chen, who specializes in romance scams and financial fraud. She'll know exactly how to handle this. Will Emma have to know before they arrest him? Marcus's expression was sympathetic. Richard, Emma's going to have to know everything. She's listed in his plans as an active participant, even if she doesn't realize she's being used. The FBI will need to interview her, verify she wasn't complicit. The thought of Emma learning the truth this way, through FBI interrogation, was unbearable. There has to be another way. I can't let her find out from federal agents that the man she loves is a con artist. Then you tell her first. Show her the evidence. Let her hear the recordings. Give her the chance to process it with you before the authorities get involved. But how do you tell your daughter that her fairy tale is actually a nightmare? I called Emma the next day. Sweetheart, can you come down this weekend? Alone? There's something I need to discuss with you. Is everything okay, Dad? You sound worried. I'm fine, but it's important. Please, Emma. Just you. She arrived Saturday afternoon, concern written all over her face. Dad, what's going on? You're scaring me. I'd set up my laptop on the dining room table, the audio files ready to play. My hands were shaking as I gestured for her to sit. Emma, before I show you this, I need you to know that I love you more than anything in this world. What I'm about to tell you is going to hurt, but I'm doing it because I can't stand by and watch you get hurt worse. Her face went pale. This is about Victor, isn't it? Dad, if you're going to tell me you don't approve because he's Russian, or because you think it's too fast. Emma, please, just listen. I took a deep breath. Victor is not who he says he is. He's a con artist who's targeted you specifically because of your trust fund and my estate. She stood up abruptly. I can't believe this. You invited him for Christmas just to judge him? To look for reasons not to like him? I invited him so I could protect you from him. Emma, I speak Russian. I have for 40 years. It was classified during my career, but I'm fluent. And on Thanksgiving, I heard Victor on the phone, discussing his plan to defraud you. Emma's face flushed with anger. You speak Russian? Since when? And you just happened to overhear him plotting against me? This is paranoid, Dad. This is you being overprotective and racist. And listen to the recording. I pressed play. Victor's voice filled the room, speaking Russian. Then my recorded voice translation followed, captured separately, matching his words precisely. The old man is completely trusting, practically begging me to manage his finances. The daughter is even easier than I expected. By February, I'll have signatures on everything we need. Emma's face drained of color. No, this is fake. You're making this up. I played the Christmas Eve recording. Victor's cold laugh, his casual mention of the proposal as a manipulation tactic, his discussion of offshore accounts and escape plans. The divorce will be filed from there, and good luck to them trying to recover anything through international courts. Emma's legs gave out, and she sank back into the chair. He said divorce. We're not even engaged yet, and he's already planning to divorce me? I knelt beside her, taking her trembling hands. Emma, he's done this before. At least 3 times that we know of. There was a woman in Seattle last year. Stop. Tears were streaming down her face. Please, just stop. We sat in silence for several minutes, Emma crying quietly while I held her hand, wishing I could absorb her pain. Finally, she whispered, I gave him copies of Mom's trust documents. He said he wanted to help me invest smarter, grow the principal. I thought he was being helpful. He was being strategic. How long have you known? Since Thanksgiving. I've been investigating him since then. She pulled her hands away. You've known for a month? And you didn't tell me? Would you have believed me without proof? Emma, you were in love. You needed to hear it from him, in his own words. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I was going to say yes. When he proposed on New Year's Eve, I was going to say yes. I've been looking at wedding dresses, Dad. I told all my friends I'd found the one. The devastation in her voice broke my heart. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Don't apologize for protecting me. She wiped her eyes angrily. What happens now? Now we contact the FBI. They'll want to interview you, verify that you weren't aware of his plans. Then they'll likely set up a sting operation to catch him in the act. Emma's jaw tightened, and I saw a flash of Margaret's steel in her eyes. Good. I want to be there when he realizes he's caught. Special Agent Sarah Chen met with us the following Monday. She was sharp, professional, and thoroughly unsympathetic to Viktor Petrov's eventual fate. Based on the evidence you've provided and our investigation into the Seattle case Mr. Webb mentioned, we have enough to arrest Mr. Petrov immediately, she said. However, if you're willing to cooperate, we'd like to build a stronger case that might help us identify other victims and potentially shut down his entire operation. What would that involve? Emma asked, her voice steady despite the pain I knew she was feeling. We'd like you to continue the relationship as planned, at least until his proposal. We'll wire you for the occasion, and we need you to try to get him talking about his plans. Ask questions about the future, about finances, about his work. See if he'll reveal more details about the offshore accounts or his associates. Emma looked at me. Dad, what do you think? I think it's your decision, sweetheart. But I also think about the other women he's hurt, and the ones he'll hurt if we don't stop him completely. She turned back to Agent Chen. I'll do it, but I want my father there when you arrest him. He deserves to see this through. New Year's Eve arrived with the weight of an execution date. Victor had reserved a table at Portland's most exclusive restaurant, the kind of place where proposals happened regularly, captured by photographers who just happened to be there. Emma wore a wire so sophisticated it was undetectable even if Victor hugged her. FBI agents were stationed throughout the restaurant, posing as couples on dates, a bartender, even a waiter. I was positioned at a nearby table with Marcus, supposedly having our own celebration, but really there to monitor everything. Victor arrived in a new suit, carrying a small velvet box that made my stomach clench. He was all smiles and confidence, believing his plan was proceeding perfectly. Over champagne and filet mignon, he steered the conversation exactly where the FBI wanted. Emma, darling, I've been thinking about our future, he said, reaching across the table for her hand. After we're married, I'd like to set up a joint account for us, pool our resources, make better investment choices. Your trust fund, combined with my financial expertise, we could really build something substantial. Emma played her role perfectly. That sounds wonderful. Would we need to transfer everything? Or keep separate accounts too? Oh, everything should be together. That's what marriage is, complete trust. In fact, I've already spoken to some colleagues about setting up accounts that would give us more flexibility. International markets, better returns. International? Like where? Cyprus, primarily. Very favorable tax structures. Excellent privacy laws. Don't worry, darling. I'll handle all the details. You won't have to think about any of it. I'll bet she won't, I thought grimly. As dessert arrived, Victor stood up, drawing attention from nearby tables. He pulled out the velvet box and opened it, revealing a substantial diamond ring. Emma Caldwell, he said, his voice carrying across the restaurant. "You have made me the happiest man alive. Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Every diner in the restaurant turned to watch. A photographer materialized, camera ready. It was perfect theater. Emma looked up at him, and for a moment, I saw genuine pain cross her face. This could have been real. In another world, another life, this could have been the happiest moment of her life. Then her expression hardened. "Victor, I have a question first." His smile faltered slightly. "Of course, darling. Anything. Is Victor Petrov actually your real name?" The color drained from his face. "What? Of course it is. What kind of question? And Meridian International Finance. You're really a senior executive there?" People were starting to murmur. The photographer lowered his camera. "Emma, what is this?" Victor's voice had an edge now, the charm cracking. "This is me asking if the man proposing to me is the same man who told someone named Dmitri that he'd have signatures on everything by February. The same man planning to transfer my money to Cyprus and file for divorce from there." Victor's face went from pale to flushed. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really? Should I switch to Russian? Would that help?" Emma's voice was ice. That's when Victor realized he was caught. His eyes darted around the restaurant, looking for exits, and that's when Agent Chen stood up from a nearby table, badge in hand. "Victor Petrov, FBI. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, identity theft, and theft by deception." The restaurant erupted in gasps and whispers. Victor tried to run, but 2 more agents blocked his path. Within seconds, he was in handcuffs, being read his rights, while the diamond ring sat forgotten on the table. As they led him past my table, Victor saw me for the first time. Recognition flashed in his eyes, then confusion. I stood up and said in perfect Russian, "You were right about one thing, Victor. Americans can be too trusting, but you forgot we can also be very, very thorough." His face contorted with rage and humiliation as he realized I'd understood everything from the very beginning. Emma walked over to me, tears streaming down her face, but her head held high. I pulled her into my arms as she finally broke down, sobbing against my shoulder while the FBI led Victor away. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," I whispered. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that." "Don't be sorry," she said, her voice muffled against my jacket. "You saved me, Dad. You saved me from making the worst mistake of my life." The aftermath was extensive. Victor was formally charged with multiple counts of fraud, spanning 3 states and 2 countries. His cooperation led to the arrest of his associates, including the mysterious Dmitri, who turned out to be running a sophisticated international romance scam network. Emma had to testify, had to relive the humiliation of being targeted and manipulated. But through it all, she showed the same strength her mother had possessed. 3 months later, we sat together in my study, the same room where Victor had made those fateful phone calls. "Dad, I need to ask you something," Emma said. "Why didn't you tell me you spoke Russian? All these years, why keep it secret?" I sighed, looking at the photo of Margaret on my desk. During the Cold War, my language skills were classified. By the time the wall fell and I retired, it had become such a habit to hide it that I never thought to mention it. And honestly, I never thought I'd need it again. I was wrong, she smiled sadly. "I'm glad you were wrong. If you hadn't understood him, I'd be married to that monster right now, probably bankrupt and divorced in some foreign country. You would have figured it out eventually. You're too smart not to." "Maybe. But maybe not until it was too late." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "Thank you for being paranoid and overprotective, and for using your secret spy skills on my boyfriend." I laughed, the first real laugh I'd had in months. "You're welcome, sweetheart." Emma moved back to Portland shortly after the trial, taking a position with a local tech company. She said she wanted to be closer to family, closer to the person who'd proven he'd always have her back. We have dinner together twice a week now, usually at my house where she's learning to cook Margaret's old recipes. She started dating again, cautiously, and she always introduces me early on. "If my dad doesn't like you, we're done," she tells them with a smile that isn't entirely joking. I don't abuse that power, but I do listen carefully, and if I ever hear anything suspicious in any language, I won't hesitate to investigate. People ask me sometimes if I regret the way things happened, if I wish I'd handled it differently. The truth is, I'd do it all again, exactly the same way. Being a parent doesn't end when your children become adults. The protective instinct doesn't fade. The responsibility doesn't diminish. If anything, it becomes more complex. You have to protect them from dangers they don't see, while respecting their independence and choices. It's a delicate balance, knowing when to intervene and when to step back. But when I heard those words in Russian, when I understood the threat facing my daughter, there was no balance to consider. There was only action. Some people might say I betrayed Victor's trust by eavesdropping on his phone calls. But Victor never earned my trust. He earned my suspicion from the moment he walked through my door with his calculated charm and empty eyes. The real gift my 40 years of service gave me wasn't just the Russian language. It was the ability to recognize when someone is performing rather than being genuine. It was the patience to gather evidence before acting. It was the network of capable people who'd help protect what matters most. And what matters most is Emma. Always was, always will be. She's thriving now, her confidence rebuilt, her instincts sharpened by experience. She's more cautious but not cynical, more aware but not afraid. That's all I could have hoped for. As for Viktor Petrov, he's serving 8 years in federal prison with deportation to follow. His associates faced similar fates. The FBI estimated they defrauded victims of over $15 million over a decade of operations. I sleep better now, knowing he can't hurt anyone else. And knowing that when it mattered most, when my daughter needed protection from a threat she couldn't see, I was there. I was ready. And I had exactly the skills needed to save her. That old fool didn't understand a thing. No, Victor, I understood everything. That was your fatal mistake. What would you do if you discovered someone you loved was being manipulated? Would you intervene or trust them to figure it out on their own? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel for more true stories about family, protection, and the lengths we'll go to for the people we love.